Hello. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is quite nice. This is the new friends per second. It's us three.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I like it. It's intimate. It's cozy.
it's a higher
It
rate
is.
of friends per second, like more dense
Right.
friends per second.
Yeah.
But
All geographically local for a change, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
quite nice.
so we're the
So
San
we're all
Francisco friends per second.
Exactly. We're the West Coast friends per second. But no, thank you for joining us. I want to start before we really get into kind of the ins and outs of Keeper. I want to take a step back a little bit and just talk about how, in this current climate of game development, did you guys get to make a game about a walking lighthouse?
We lied.
Yeah.
Who do?
We pitched it as a Forza or a Halo killer initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
We
didn't go
cut
over well.
we made the gun invisible at the last second.
Yeah,
Oh wait, that is one of Jake's like favorite things. Is what if X character had a gun?
Mhm.
What if the lighthouse had a gun?
it just keep falling to the ground because the lighthouse has no arms
Has no
to shoot
arms.
it. Yeah.
That's true.
And then it looks down sadly at it.
What if what if Twig had a gun?
Wait, go get it.
Twig is more of a knife. I think a knife character. Like to get up close to see the victims, like more of a next
Pretty
stepper.
savvy bird.
Yeah.
But no, so going back, what were the initial inspirations for Keeper? What was time frame in terms of the studio? When did production really start to ramp up on it?
Lee will tell a lovely story, but I'll set some of the context, which is that we had been acquired in 2019 and we shipped Psychonauts 2 in 2021. So this was now, okay, that was a game we started before acquisition. Now that we're in this position of being part of Xbox and being not going out of business every 3 months, what's our new funded, what are we going to do now? So Lee, now that's where Lee was like thinking, actually, I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah. All right. A lighthouse. Yeah. I know. I mean, there's kind of like two stories there, right? There's this sort of inspiration for the game, and then just thinking about like where we as Double Fine sit within, Xbox game studios, and I think the inspiration for the game came from the pandemic. And I often retreated to hiking a lot and being outdoors a lot during the pandemic, and that was just like a really meditative place for me. And I started imagining, kind of all these, like what's next for life and how would life continue to develop, and some part of that led to a lighthouse, which it's a kind of a hard connection. But I had this moment where I was thinking about, well, what sort of bits of humanity would be left over, and if those things were left over, would they just be backdrops, or would they be possessed? They'd have to find a new purpose for themselves, right? Because like the human world is gone, humans are gone. And I started thinking about a lighthouse as kind of an interesting metaphor for that, because there's no ships to guide or anything, and how would a lighthouse change unexpectedly? I was like, well, what if it could walk? And it went on a journey to find like a new meaning for itself. And so that's kind of like the very, very start of the idea. And I knew that, thinking about Double Fine and Xbox, like they certainly didn't, probably acquire us thinking that we were going to be like, a satellite studio for the next Call of Duty or anything. So, we were like, well, what can we offer that other studios they own maybe aren't? And I always like to think that Tim always says that, we really are creative led and we focus on new ideas. And so I think this is a little bit of like us testing, like, are they going to really let us make this Lighthouse game? And they've been great partners with it. And the way we like to think about it is we wanted to create this shorter experience, like a 6-hour experience that took players on like a really fantastical adventure that they're not expecting, and surprise and delight them along the way, and just really be something refreshing and different. And I always sort of pitched it early on as like a palate cleanser, because it doesn't ask a lot from the player. You don't have to play it for 40 hours, but hopefully something that just resonates and sticks with people that they can kind of talk about and discuss with friends afterwards.
Oh, that's interesting. To go back a little bit when you said it was kind of born out of this, the isolation from everyone in the pandemic. This obviously the studio would have been isolating at that time. Everyone would have been working from home. What was it like making a game about, or at least what I took away from it was playing is like forging connection and putting yourself out there. What was that like making it from home and then back in the studio? Because I got to come visit you guys last week, and it's so nice to see how friendly everyone is and how much everyone hangs out. And, it's a really nice culture. So I guess my question would be, yeah, what was the two, were there two different phases of development in that sense?
Yeah, a bit. It was one, like, we wrapped up Psychonauts 2 remotely, and that was, a little different because it was a sequel, and the game had already sort of developed creatively in how, like, with everyone in the same space. So it was kind of an interesting challenge, and we had, um, developing something new that way. But we have such a great team, and everyone was really helpful. I think everyone knew there were little extra challenges when coming up with something really creative. So. I don't know. I feel like we really collaborated and worked really well together. And so when we started coming back in the office more, and some parts of our team are like not local, so they're not coming in very frequently at all. It was pretty seamless for us. A lot of the challenges were just more about the sort of, how do you brainstorm with some people local and some people remotely, and how do you communicate and effectively when you can't just like look over someone's shoulder and see something on the monitor. So there's like a lot of that sort of just practical stuff, but creatively I felt like people really got used to brainstorming remotely, or posting more videos, which is like a kind of a boring thing to say, but instead of like sending out reams of documents for people to write, we like, people would often like be really quick, like, I just recorded a little 2-minute video with my thoughts about this area. And I just noticed everyone instinctively will digest videos and respond to them much more than documents. So we just kind of became more video centric, I guess, if we weren't already like live with each other.
I was gonna say that's
Trying
fun.
to answer that all again, but use a lighthouse metaphorically.
Yeah, we just
tried to
shine
do
the
it
light across the
and-
sea of remote workers.
Ships are coming in blind.
I like how that you became like a video focused in terms of messaging, whereas I've become a voice note person because I just can't bear to type stuff again. Whereas, if you get a voice note from me, you get a jingle in it. So
I mean, yeah.
Do you sing them? Do you sing them?
No, but I do like personal podcast time. I'll give him little jingles just to make it more interesting.
We
But
should
let's
try
talk
that.
about. You should. Hey, you can have that for free. I'll record one special for you. I was going to ask you about your approach to the gameplay itself. You said something you didn't want to be too demanding on a player, and I'm really interested about your approach to puzzles as well. Like when I came to the studio last week, you kind of mentioned it was like on the lighter side of things. You don't ever want a player to get stuck. In testing, how do you figure out what makes a good puzzle like that? Because you're the ones who are redoing that the whole time.
Yeah, puzzles are really tricky to test. I mean, I think, especially classic adventure games, they're really tricky for a lot of reasons. One is because of course, like once you've played it once, you're sort of spoiled to some extent, like, what's supposed to happen. But I also find that in a game like Keeper, where it's a wordless game and we don't use the HUD for hardly anything, it required us to have a certain level of visual and sonic fidelity, because a lot of the hints or guidance comes from the camera, comes from, the visuals, from the effects that kick off and the sound. And so you had to kind of have enough of that in place. So our approach was to try and get that stood up with that level, a certain level of fidelity, maybe more so than on other games we've made, but try to construct everything so it's pretty modular and flexible, even though we didn't want it to look modular at all. Like under the hood, the game is very dynamic. Like nothing's baked down. Like all of our lighting and environment and such is just all very dynamic. So we can adjust it pretty quickly. But yeah, like getting back to like the puzzle design itself, I think, one of the things we were after in this game was creating a certain atmosphere and mood that's maybe not so common in games, and think of the overall experience. And so we wanted puzzles because we wanted people to have meaningful interactions with the world and characters. So our puzzles were often kind of tied into communities or particular problems that had like an effect on the overall narrative or world state, more so than very mechanically deep puzzles that are just sort of almost abstract from the game world that are just overlaid onto it. And that meant that instead of like often setting up the puzzle with like a specific HUD or dialogue or something, without words, I guess, without that, we sort of we have the player almost just wander into the puzzle before even knowing it's a puzzle, and try to build that awareness like almost in the middle of the puzzle, right, where they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm moving these blue things. I don't know why I'm moving these blue things, but then you see the result of moving the blue things. You're like, oh, that's cool. I helped that guy out. Like, oh, they're going to help me. I know, that's cool. I wonder what that means. And maybe we'd echo some of those shapes and motifs or ideas later on for people to connect them on a more meaningful level.
Double Fine's always been, well known and well loved for the writing, performances. Was the idea for Keeper to be wordless in it from the very beginning, or was it, just what the hell would a lighthouse sound like? We can't do that.
Yeah.
Or did you write a bunch of dialogue and then record it and then cut it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say, I mean, it was mostly from day one, although the idea from the Lighthouse too, I remember I had written for like a slightly earlier version of the game. I had definitely written a mission or a little part of a level that actually had, this is where the Lighthouse first came to me, was like the lighthouse had gotten lost and wandered into a farmer's field. And the farmer, I'd written some dialogue, and the farmer's like, "You got to get this thing out of my field. It's ruining the crops." And so you had to like escort it back to the ocean. And I think over time, I was just thinking, I'm like, well, that's fun, that's cool, but it's not weird enough. It's not unusual enough. It's like I love video games because you get to inhabit characters that you don't get to inhabit in movies or other things. It's like, why don't we just the whole game you're a lighthouse? That would be much more interesting. And I think so. Part of it is like you said, it'd be kind of goofy in a sort of feature animation way of all of our like weird characters were talking. But at the same time, it was ultimately for me, it was more about the mood I was after. I wanted to kind of create an experience that was a bit open to interpretation. And I think when I love writing too, and I love a lot of the writing we do at the studio, but it engages like a different part of your brain than just the visuals and sound do. And I felt like it was more, I guess I always described it as like there was a certain type of quiet in the world during the pandemic, even though it wasn't a positive quiet in a lot of ways. There was like, and I just felt like I wanted to capture that about being in this kind of unusual environment, not sure, like, and also kind of have a dreamlike quality. And it felt like removing words and text was a better way to get that vibe.
God, yeah, I didn't even think about it like that. I remember in the pandemic, the moment that got me was walking outside and not hearing or seeing any airplanes in the sky.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the moment that I kind of always would go back to, was just how strange it was.
Mm-hmm.
And also the weirdest moment was going back to the UK where no one was masked up and everyone was fine.
Like,
I guess it's cute over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they made me isolate for 2 weeks, and I thought it was, going to be like 28 days later, but no. Back to normal.
No, but you're right. Yeah, the airplanes.
We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
No. And I suppose as well, I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about here is that the legacy of Double Fine games. What to you both, having worked at the studio for so long, is like, what do you think it is that is the core, the heart of a Double Fine game?
Well, I mean, we wrote down like all these pillars for the company recently, and the number one thing was creativity, just to have idea of like, there's, every company will put something different first, and I think for us, our challenge is to just always be led by inspiration and then go for the ideas that are most creative, and some people, often attribute that with like taking risks. And I think it does feel like a risk, but I don't think it's actually riskier to do creative original stuff. I think there's a lot of games that are really imitative of other games that are, if something comes out successful and then everyone imitates it, those games are just as likely to be failures as anything else. You might as well do something that makes you feel creatively inspired and inspires other people. And in some ways, for us, it's always been the safest path because that's how we've survived, I think, by standing out in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lee, what about you?
All of what Tim said for sure, but I think of it too, just as a simple word I always think about is personality. Just and sometimes that means, of course, making very creative games, but I think it's sometimes down to the details, just sometimes making a different choice than most people would make. It's not necessarily the better choice or the worst choice. It's just a different one. And thinking about, where that personality is, like in Keeper, there's nothing in the fundamental game design that would like require us to have spent as much time as we did having so many animations and personality on side characters that you could completely ignore. But like that is absolutely in our DNA. And the animators are like, all right, so we're going to set up this little thing here. And then the level there's like, oh, well, we could add them later. And that would be, implying they're part of this life cycle. And, but it's just like looking for that personality on all levels, whether it's, sound or music or visuals and gameplay. And I think we're just so used to entertaining those thoughts when someone comes up with that it excites the team to have those conversations and go for some of that.
Yeah, I love that. There's one particular sequence where there was a lot more action, I think, in the background than I was anticipating seeing. But yeah, spending time looking at everything, it was just very magical. It was very heartwarming. And yeah, as you said, like being personality, I think certainly among the stable of Xbox studios, you are the studio with personality, and the games are beloved and have, and the studio has this kind of this legion of fans that have been with you for so long. I'm interested, like what is next for Double Fine? Is there another project you are working on? Are you gonna become that Call of Duty support studio that I've been hearing all these rumors about? What's next? And like, I suppose, do you have any words right now about just the current state of game development? Because it's been a really awful couple of years for a lot of studios, a lot of projects, and a studio like yourselves, which has been scrappy and survived for a very long time. Do you have any words for what we're seeing right now?
Yeah. I mean, for us, I can say that we have multiple projects going on, and we're doing other games, and it's all new stuff. We've said that, it's not, we're not working on any sequels because we did some sequels, and now we're doing all new stuff. And Lee, you can answer the hard part of that question.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that humans are bad at, it's predicting the future, which is pretty interesting. I think, yeah, it's been a rough couple of years from a developer standpoint, and there have been some great games coming out this year and last year, right? Like I feel like the actual like passion for developing great stuff is as high as it's ever been. But it's been really rough, and I think the factors for that are kind of like numerous, and probably, my guess is as good as anyone else's. But in some cases, if you just sort of feel like, well, if you're doomed making endless franchises and sequels, then maybe just try something original and go for it. Just to some extent, like they always say that in art school, or you're developing art, so like stop worrying about comparing yourself to everyone else. Just like do what you're passionate about. Just go for it. And hope that it works out, And I think, certainly there's some strategic ways of looking at which games we should make, but mostly we're just trying to do what we think we do best and that we're passionate for.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think that is a good place to leave it. Thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So is Tim Schafer nice? He seems nice, but I saw him once in real life and I got nervous.
Tim's lovely. They're both lovely. Everyone I've ever met at Double Fine, and I got to go to the studio a couple of weeks ago. And I know you two are very envious, and I'm sorry for rubbing it in your faces. But they had an event at their office, at their studio, and we did a paint and sip. And so it was a really, really fun event. And no, everyone was lovely. That space, because we've been to a few development studios, and some of them, I don't know, feel, not as vibrant sometimes. It is very much a place to work with Double Fine. It was really colorful, cool. They had a room that was just blacklit, and they had cartoonists and stuff, and artists who came through would draw stuff on the walls in glow-in-the-dark paint and pictures and stuff, and it was really fun. And the game is great. I loved Keeper. I had such a lovely time with it.
Yeah,
I was also sick as shit. I had flu, and I will say Keeper was a really good sick game.
Okay.
It was a lovely sick
All
game.
I could think of is I don't do drugs, but imagine, like, I'm going to assume that there's no better game ever made for like when you were like high or whatever than that.
We see, I would say
so fucking psychedelic and.
But that could also backfire on you.
Yeah,
backfire big time, because it is very, very, very.
There is one part of the game, and I'm not spoiling or anything, but like the game does, when like you do a game and it's like, whoa, now we're going through a trippy part, and it's like does cool visualizers.
Exactly what you mean.
But this game did it in a way where I actually went, oh fuck! Like I was like, whoa, okay, this is actually working for me. Like,
yes,
it does a lot of. For me, this game was all. I just finished it last night. For me, the game is all art. It's all visual. Yeah. It's all looking at stuff. I felt not a lot playing through this adventure. I wasn't like, my heart wasn't really warmed by the lighthouse or anything like that. I didn't come away with much.
Yeah.
But I did think it was really gorgeous, and it was really cool to see this cool art on display. And for a shorter experience, like I'm cool with that. If you show me some cool shit, I'm in.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I found it very moving. The whole thing that they were saying is that it's a game obviously told without words. There's and I think, you know, a lot of that rides on the animation and music and tone and, you know, vibes. And I think they did a really good job. I felt maybe because, you know, I got 2 pets. I think I actually I took a lot of meaning out of the game. I think that or like I put a lot of meaning on the game, in the game.
Sure.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Where it felt, you know, like, I don't know, feelings of loneliness, feelings of putting yourself out there, feelings of finding a friend, feelings of losing a friend, feelings of change and the anxiety that can bring, but also the joy in which it can bring too. And I think, like you said, Jake, it's very art first, but I also like the fact that there was not this narrative and that I could put
your own
my own feelings into things. And I can't remember, for context, we recorded the interview last week. I don't think I got to ask this question. Maybe I did. I don't have a good brain anymore. But like, I didn't want to know anything about that world. As in, like, I didn't need to know the answers.
Yeah.
And I like that, you know, there were snippets of lore in the achievements. You didn't even have to engage with that if you didn't want to. But there are things that you could describe and things that you could put together if you wanted to. Or if not, those little statues that you could find, those little pieces of storytelling you could put your own meaning into. And so I liked it a lot. I think, again, I was very sick. And
that's okay.
But it was nice because it was like not a brain switch off moment, but like a brain osmosis moment. I think that's how I would describe Keeper.
Interesting.
Meshed with feelings that I was having, latent anxieties, latent, you know, things, I don't know. It was, you know, how smell is such an integral part of memory. In a weird way, playing through Keeper would remind me of certain things that I had done in my life or experiences that I have had, and I ascribe my own meaning to the game in that way. And I think that makes it very powerful, and I don't think I've really had an experience like that with a game.
It's so funny because I think, I've kind of fallen in the same bucket as Jake, where I wasn't really like feeling a lot during this, but I definitely saw chatter from people who said that they were feeling a lot in this story. And I could sort of see some of the surface level aspects as to why, but I think that the way you frame it there, like, does make a lot of sense. You know, you're right. Like, I think it does have subtle moments which are telling these sort of micro stories or stories aren't even really the right word, but like
micro themes almost.
Yeah, micro themes is a better way to do it. I think you're right. Yeah, and so I get that actually. It makes a lot of sense. And the one that I really resonated with was like, change. Like, there's a moment toward the back end of the game where something changes, and I could definitely feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember when I've been in situations like that in my own life, right?
Yeah.
So I felt that in that moment. I didn't feel it across the rest of the game, but now, as I said, with you explaining it that way, I can definitely see how that has had such an impact on so many other people. I go on, Jake. Sorry.
I agree with that. I feel like one kind of theme I kind of picked up was kind of like empowerment almost, where you're very helpless and you slowly start to become empowered in certain ways, and the game would often take it away from you, and then you'd be like, oh no, and then it would do a really good job giving it back, but then also escalating it and progressively escalating you feeling empowered, and not by you getting like a new gun or something, but just in more subtle ways. But I like that escalation kind of in a way where you don't really see where it's coming. I always come back to Oddworld Stranger's Wrath. That game makes a left turn about halfway through, and the stakes and the visuals and the control scheme and everything gets bigger. And you go, oh, wow. And this game had like little examples of that sprinkled throughout that kept me playing, essentially, where, you know, the puzzles are pretty simple. There is no lore really, unless you want to like read into it. It was that empowerment and escalation that kind of kept me going.
Yeah, I wondered how did you guys feel about like the more playable aspects of it in terms of like puzzles and exploration and all that sort of stuff. I personally kind of struggle with the camera.
Because it's
Oh, big
guided.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's two things. One, it's like old school tank controls, which is fine, but the perspectives they were using with those controls were it sometimes made it hard to see where you needed to go.
Yes.
Because old school tank controls in like Resident Evil games, they would just kind of put the camera in the corner of the room and you kind of look down on it, or like or you're walking down a corridor, not many options, right? But I think with some of these, you sort of move into a space and you just couldn't really know, you didn't really know where to go at that beginning moment when you're kind of trying to orient yourself, and you kind of press into a wall and you're like, oh no, that's not the way the controls want me to go. Do you know what I mean? Like I had a bit of that friction. But the more annoying one was when you're in those open spaces where you kind of can go in 360, but you can't pull the camera behind you. Like you can't turn the camera. You have to pull it behind you manually by moving your character. And
Things
I'm like, what are we doing here? Like,
obscured.
Yeah, I found that really weird and quite annoying. There were actually like a few instances where I just couldn't see what I wanted to see without like going out and then coming back in, like a fucking parking a semi-trailer or some shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was a weird choice. I really don't know why they did that. You could have just made the camera like the shoulder buttons, the camera buttons. It would have been fine.
I wonder if it's like maybe a memory issue, just like in terms of how detailed those environments are. Like I don't know. I was playing on a 4090 and my PC, I had to put it on high, not ultra.
Okay. I got so many crashes though. I will say that.
I didn't get any. I didn't get any crashes. I have like an issue with Unreal games, and I think it's just on my particular machine where if I leave something hanging on a pause menu for too long, it crashes, and it's only Unreal 5 that does it. So I didn't get.
Well, now you can deal with problems like that on the go.
Can't wait. Can't fucking wait.
PC gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you guys feel about the puzzle side of things? Were you enjoying that, or were you like, yeah?
I liked them because they were not too taxing, which I think really would have, like, with those annoyances. Because I agree with you on the camera. At some faces, I would keep trying to change, like to move the camera, and then having to remind myself that I couldn't do it, and that was frustrating. And I think if the puzzles were any more difficult, that would have been a way more frustrating experience. There were a couple that I got like stuck on for a little bit, but it was mostly a camera issue.
Yeah.
For me though, completing those puzzles and, you know, blasting light away at the wither, that's what it's called, elicited the same feeling in me as when you would put life back into the world in Okami. There's something just so satisfying about that.
Okay, yeah.
And so completing puzzles and then it leading to that great moment where the wither all goes away and nature comes back. Again, it's me putting my own feelings into this, but it reminds me of one of my favorite games of all time. And so, but it's not a completely frictionless experience. I completely agree.
Yeah. Did you guys, without spoiling anything, did you guys enjoy how it ended? You know, where are you guys at with that?
I'm never really worried too much about the ending of these sorts of games because I feel like it's always about where I've been going. So the journey rather than the destination, you know? So I would say I didn't really care that much. I think the moment for me that was most important was that moment of like change that we talked about. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That for me was the crescendo of the game, even though there was a little bit after that, which, you know, kind of got a bit wild. So yeah, I again, I don't fixate too much on that for these sorts of experiences.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I definitely think it is worth playing. It's short and it showed me something kind of different. I also I live near multiple lighthouses, so I can like relate to a lighthouse. If you think about it, really makes you think. But yeah, I think Keeper is cool.
I liked it.
It is nice. Well, the last thing though, what do you guys think of the music? A bit of a weird choice, I thought, with some of the music tracks. Did you guys like it? I didn't like it, but I didn't dislike it. I was just like, oh, this is notable. Like, this is not what I would have guessed for this sort of experience.
It was not what I expected.
Yeah.
But I think like you, it didn't.
Kind of faded into the back and you kind of just, you know, it's like that percussive.
Yes.
The one thing I did like about it though, and this is going to be like a weird cut, but it had that like kids toy piano key twinkling from like a Mark Mothersbaugh, like Rugrats type soundtrack.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're
very
right.
specific thing, but like I appreciated little unique things like that throughout.
Good point. point. Yeah.
Imagine if Mark Mothersbaugh did the soundtrack. Well, he did The Sims too.
Oh, that explains a lot. That
Yeah,
makes
dude.
sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get him
Okay,
back
you
into
just like
gaming.
brain blasted me.
Get him back into gaming.
Yeah, definitely.